There we go. And let's just go ahead and Chairman Walters, if you want to introduce yourself, and we'll continue from there.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Thank you so much, folks, for having me. Dan, especially thanks for the invite. I know this took a couple months to get scheduled, and I appreciate your patience. It has been a busy first quarter and early spring. I'm excited to share some more with you tonight about, the path ahead in 23 and 24, and specifically give some updates on our reproductive rights ballot initiative work and HJR1. Before I jump into the slide deck, though, I did also want to recognize Constance Lighthall, who's a member of our ODP Executive Committee and just an incredibly active member who, Constance, I don't know what clubs you're not a part of, so I won't dare to list them all, except to say that I think there are a few women in Southwest Ohio who work harder than Constance. So we're really grateful for her support and her activism, and to all of you for the work that you are doing through Bold New Democracy, both for Democrats, but also for causes that we all care about. So Miranda's going to go ahead and start the slideshow, and we are going to jump right in and walk you through kind of where we've been for so far this year and where we're headed. So what have we been up to? What are we working on now? Currently, we were working on finishing up our analysis and planning for 23 and 24. We did a bunch of what we call walls down meetings, where candidate campaigns, 501c4s, the party, national organizations get together and say, what did you do last cycle? Well, what did we do last cycle? What worked? What didn't work? And then really dig on the data and went all the way down to a precinct level analysis to be like, all right, what's next and what are our top priorities? We hosted family meetings across the state. We did one in Southwest Ohio. It was our biggest attendance. So thanks to folks in Southwest Ohio. Our voter contact analysis to understand what tactics are working well, particularly coming out of COVID. We wanted to spend a lot of time digging in and saying, okay, are we all going back to in-person work, or are there some things that are just that COVID showed us we could do better or smarter or more conveniently for folks? And then from, December 1st on, we have been in rigorous planning, shoulder to shoulder with Senator Brown and his team, including his new manager, Rachel Petrie, who is on the ground in Ohio, and the senator's team is filled up all of our empty offices at ODP. So we've been excited to see them get to work. Part of this work has also been redesigning our staff structure and making sure, seeing who's with us and who's going to move on throughout the course of the next year. So for the most part, we've had total staff continuity on the senior staff level, which is really exciting for us. We have a smart, talented young staff of folks who are, most importantly, deeply passionate about changing Ohio for the better and about winning the future for Democrats in Ohio. Of course, also deeply excited about working for someone like Senator Sherrod Brown, who wouldn't be. So that's pretty exciting stuff. One note, I know many of you have gotten to know and work with our party affairs director, John Tanous. We love John. John is amazing. John is going to be moving on from ODP next month. We wish him all the best. It is a friendly and just we're so excited for what's next for him. People have been trying to recruit him out of ODP almost since the moment he got here, and he finally got, I think, an offer that he couldn't refuse. So we'll have a new party affairs director ready to announce hopefully in about a week's time. So we're excited about that. So the other piece that we've been looking at and working hard on is how we structure our capabilities for Ohio Dems for the long term. So that's our organizing program and volunteer engagement. And then also how we grow our digital audience building. So how are we engaging with voters online? That work is really interesting. And I think it's safe to say we all know enough to be dangerous. I am not Gen Z. I do not know how to use TikTok, but we need to get into that space, right? And so we have a lot of really smart young people, including Miranda, who's on this call, who are helping lead that charge for us so that we can communicate to voters where they're consuming their information. In terms of our programmatic priorities, what we're focused on right now and moving into 24 is our 6,000 plus municipal races that are on the ballot all across Ohio. We have a few key big city races here on the May primary ballot, including Columbus, Akron, Canton, Cincinnati, sort of, right? So places where we know we've got some primary activity, but then September primaries in some places, and then the November general, we have over 6,000 township trustees, school board members. We started the year by talking to over 7,000 people who were interested in running for local office. Obviously, that number whittles down a little bit once they start to go through vetting and training, and then we actually walk them through what it means to run for office. But so far, we've been doing our Main Street training classes across Ohio, both in person and a few online options. And we have engaged with over 500 folks who want to run for local office this year, who are planning to file. So we're super excited to see what the year brings with those folks. And then obviously engaging in the 23-24 ballot campaigns, particularly right now, reproductive freedom. And then honestly, depending on what happens in committee in the State House tomorrow, potentially a ballot initiative and a special election in August on HJR1, which I'll talk more about at the end. We're beginning to put together the framework of our 2024 coordinated campaign, and again, doing that digital work. So it's exciting, big pieces early on for us to start with. We can go to the next slide. So, designing the 2024 coordinated campaign. One thing I want to say coming out of 23 or 22 was that, in 2022, we were really focused on rebuilding muscles that we had kind of lost through the pandemic, of getting folks out into their neighborhoods, getting them comfortable with doing voter reg or having door-to-door conversations with their neighbors. And I think even for us, we took for granted just how much work we were going to have to do to get people to feel comfortable in those spaces again. And as a result, what we found is that we had to go really deep on one or two tactics, both with the staff to get them to have them understand the fundamentals of building a good volunteer program, but also actually kind of getting consistency and activity going in the volunteer space. So as a result, what happened was in 22, we did a lot of great work. We knocked almost 1 million doors. We actually had individual voter contact with about 4.2 million individuals across Ohio. So thank you to all of you for contributing to that, particularly in Hamilton County. We did an immense amount of work around the CD1, so in Hamilton and Warren County in particular. And because of that work, we tossed out Steve Shabbat, a 20-year incumbent. We have a new congressman in Southwest Ohio, Greg Landsman. But the other thing that really didn't happen was we didn't have a lot of flexibility. So groups like Bold New Democracy or other volunteers who frankly don't really need a 21-year-old organizer to tell you what to do. You just need to be able to plug into a structure and you can run your own show. We just didn't have the ability to be super flexible. So one of our top priorities going into 24 is how do we better manage the tension between having a metrics-driven, highly structured program, but also having a lot of volunteer empowerment where we can entrust the work to people who've been in this work far longer than anybody that we hire straight out of college. So we're working through that. We've had some good conversations with some big activist groups so far in Central Ohio, and we're going to start having those conversations in Northeast and in Southwest as we get into the summer. So we're hoping also we'll have more resources. Ultimately, one of the big things that just kind of didn't materialize for us, which you all saw, was at the end of the day, the national committees just decided that Ohio wasn't viable for 22. The good news is that people who wouldn't return my phone call for 2 years started calling me the first week of January, asking how they could help Sherrod Brown. We are blessed to have what I believe is our country's best senator here in Ohio. And the good news is that a lot of other people around the country feel that way too. So they want to come and help and give both their resources, their time, their capacity to support his reelection. So we're really working through all those pieces. We also want to talk more about rethinking voter contact, right? How do we do more relational organizing? How do we uplift our coalitions work and empower our constituency groups? And then, of course, we're really dialing in on how to improve and expand our data. I want to say thank you to everybody here who put data on the voter file last cycle. We have made huge leaps and bounds in improving our data quality over the last 2 years, and that's going to make us better and stronger in the long run. And it wouldn't happen without your buy-in and your help. So thank you for that. You can go to the next slide. So what does that really look like in 24, right? What is our path? I am going to tell you here tonight that we are officially putting the term Rust Belt in the rearview mirror. Like our beloved senator says, the term is pejorative and none of us really like it. But more importantly, there's a way better and more important term for us to use about Ohio in 24, and that's we are the Must Belt we must reelect Sherrod Brown in order to maintain the majority of the U.S. Senate. And just like our partners in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, Democratic parties across the Midwest are the key to rebuilding and retooling to form this blue wall to protect the Democratic majority. So we are excited to take up this mantle, but also really flagging for our national partners that Ohio is really, we're the canary in the coal mine, similar to the pin that Sherrod wears. We are an important state to invest in. And if we continue to get that disinvestment or that lack of belief from our partners, it will make it harder for us to help contribute to maintaining a majority in the Senate and building back the majority in the U.S. House. So protecting Sherrod Brown means investing Ohio. That means investing in the fights that we have to take up in order to protect our democratic power, whether that's fair maps or reproductive freedom, improving the access to the registering to vote, trying to fight our voter ID laws, which we're in the middle of a lawsuit over, and all of the above. So that's the thing that we're working on for 24. That's really our call to action. You can go to the next slide. But how do we actually do that? And I'm going to overuse the analogy. I'm going to lean all the way into it, right? Which is we're going to use the canary plan for the next 2 years to rebuild Ohio. What does that mean? C, constant organizing. A, audience building or developing that online capacity. N, our next gen data and tools. A, abortion access. R, re-elect Sherrod Brown and retake the majority in the U.S. House. And Y, year-round Democratic gains. And I'm going to touch on each of these a little bit, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I know our time is limited tonight. So I want to leave some time for questions. So if we can kind of buzz through the next few slides, I think a lot of this is explanatory, but if you want to hit the next one for me. So what is our constant organizing? And we'll share this slide deck with you guys after, because I know there's a lot of text on here, which you won't be able to read at the pace in which I go through these slides. So constant organizing, I don't have to tell you guys, that's the work you're in, right? That we're constantly engaging with voters, whether that is talking about candidates, talking about issues, just doing some good community work, right? Helping a food drive or getting out and supporting a school board meeting. Those things are all important for us to continue to work on. Specifically for us, we're also trying to prioritize getting a staff member back on the ground in Cuyahoga, Franklin, Hamilton, Lucas, and Summit County before July of this year. Those big 6 counties represent over 65% of the Democratic vote in Ohio. And if we had done as well in 2022 as we did in 2018, we would have been in a much different race going into the election day in 22. So that's a top priority for us. You can go ahead to the next slide. A, audience building. We've talked about this a little bit, but the thing we have to really grapple with now is that social media content is voter contact, right? Knocking doors is still the most powerful conversation we can have with a voter. But these days, when the voter closes their door, what do? They pick up their phone. And so in addition to talking to them face to face, we have to be able to deliver messages to them constantly through the ways in which they're engaging with the world around them. So just like traditional organizing, we know these activities have the potential to move margins, but that requires investment for us. So we started to build out an online apparatus in August of last year, and we launched it in September, and we've been kind of testing it and getting it working out the kinks. And so as we moved into March and April of this year, we really started to just put some real fuel into it. So for example, we are up right now with paid ads, like low dollar paid ads at the county level, talking about why Joe Dieters is bad for the Ohio Supreme Court. So it's little investments like that add up over time to big dollars that I think are going to have an important impact. And we'll be excited to share more with you all this summer on how that's going. Next gen data and tools, that's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to continue to lean in on improving our data quality in Vote Builder. But we're also kicking around some really cool new tools about how we empower volunteers to share really important messages with their own social networks in a much easier way, right? We don't want to have to make everybody join a Facebook group and an email list and then come to a Zoom training. We want to try to empower this in a lot more distributed way. So we're test running a lot of these things. You may be asked to participate in a trial run of some stuff, and we hope you'll help us figure out what works for Ohio. You can go to the next slide. Abortion access, right? This is 2 important parts of the fight, right? It's the ballot initiative, which we are fully engaged in, Ohio Democrats have committed 100,000 signatures to the reproductive rights campaign, and I will give you an update on where we are in just a minute. This is important work. I think we're working really hard to get to the ballot as fast as we can. We're hoping that's 2023, and right now it looks like we will get there. But the good thing about signatures in Ohio is that they're evergreen. So if we don't think we're going to get the signatures by July, the good news is we just going. We keep collecting, and then we get to the ballot in 24. But either way, it's happening. It's just a matter of when. But another really important part of this fight for abortion access and for a whole host of things we care about is protecting our 2 Democrats on the Ohio Supreme Court that are up for re-election in 2024, Melody Stewart and Mike Donnelly. We will also have a special election for an open seat appointment that was made last December by Governor DeWine. That's the Joe Dieter seat. So we have another chance going into 24 to take a majority on the court, which will mean huge things for our fight for a pro-choice Ohio, a pro-democracy Ohio, a pro-worker Ohio. And so these are the things that we'll be focused on in the abortion access space. You can go to the next slide. And then, of course, year round, I think we might have skipped Canary. There was another R in there, but that's okay. We've already talked about Sheridan, our congressional delegation. So our last one is year-round Democratic growth, right? This is all about our it's all right, you just stay where you're at, you're good. This is all about our local races and every other win we have, whether that is participating in ballot initiatives, supporting school board candidates. Every race matters, every action matters. So how we support all these fights at the local level all the way up to the state level is something that we are working to incorporate into the organization. You know, for us, the rule is there's no wrong door. So however anybody comes into activism, however anybody comes to the party, we want them to feel connected. We want them to feel a sense of belonging and welcome in the work. And that starts with us as we do the work from a statewide level, and the culture we build, the kind of access we give folks, and how we encourage local organizations and leaders to be our voice and our leaders locally. So we're excited about all this stuff. We're going to continue to talk more about it. If you go ahead to the next slide, I will walk you through where we are on our reproductive rights ballot initiative. You can go ahead one more slide ahead. Skip one. There you go. So our reproductive rights campaign, right? We already know that they are going to continue to take this fight to us no matter what we do in Columbus and Washington. Republicans are working overtime. We have common sense abortion rights ballot language here in Ohio that the Ohio Democratic Party endorsed unanimously on March 13th. And I just want to pause here and note this special moment. And Constance was there at that meeting too. And I think it was a really powerful moment for those of you who weren't able to join the meeting where, even 15 years ago, I'm not sure that vote would have been unanimous. I think the party, and in particular the party in Ohio, has come a long way. But then also to have Dr. Bean, who leads Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights, and Kelly Copeland, who's been the longtime leader of Pro-Choice Ohio, give a really powerful presentation and receive a standing ovation from all the members of our body. It was a powerful moment, and I was really proud to be an Ohio Democrat. I always am, but I was extra proud to be an Ohio Democrat that day. So we've made huge commitments to the campaign, as I've mentioned. You can skip to the next slide for me. We have committed 100,000 bulk signatures, but then we've also committed to cover 43 of their 44 counties. So what does that mean? For those of you who aren't as familiar with citizen-led ballot initiatives, under Ohio law, you have to meet both a total number, which is about 425,000 valid signatures, but then you also have to meet a certain threshold in half of the counties. So in half of the counties, you have to get 5% of the last gubernatorial turnout. So we worked with the campaign and we said, all right, here's the deal. We're going to get you 100,000 signatures. But in doing that, we're also going to make sure that we meet your 5% threshold in 43 counties. So we're covering a whole chunk of the rural state that there's frankly no one else there to do the work. So we're really excited to see our first round of reporting. We've now been collecting signatures for about 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks, and we're already 15% towards our goal, which is great. You can see here what we call our leaderboard, and everyone's doing great work. We love everybody, but this is our leaderboard in terms of who's reported. I think there's way more signatures out there. We're just working on getting everybody reporting, but shout out to Athens County, who's already met their goal in 3 weeks. That's what having OU in your county will do for you, I think. Morgan County, who's almost completely done. Morgan County, guys, that's wild. It's so exciting. Obviously Cuyahoga County, all these folks are doing great work. And I know there's amazing work happening in Claremont and Hamilton counties too. I was just with some of your Hamilton County representatives this evening at an event for Allison Russo, and they couldn't stop filling me in on all the work they were doing. I guess there's a huge signing event this weekend at Xavier, if anybody wants to stop by. I'm excited to see how that goes. But we're really excited about this progress and grateful for everyone who's been invested in doing this work. For what it's worth, we have county leads working in 63 of 88 counties on this issue. That's pretty amazing. We're really happy with how that's going. So you can go to the next slide for me. And then HJR1. Y'all, I don't know. I don't have, if I had a crystal ball, I don't even know that I could feel comfortable giving you a prediction. Tomorrow's a really big day. Tomorrow they will vote on whether to move HJR1 out of committee. The companion bill to this, which is SJR2 in the Senate, that's gone, it's done, that's passed. The bills do differ. So there's two questions. One, will it pass out of committee? I literally think it's coming down to one person, and that is Representative Swanger. He is the one vote that if he votes no, we can kill it in committee because we've locked in a few Republican no's. So if anybody knows Representative Swearinger's family or religious leader or personal cell phone number, you should give him a call. Tell him to vote no in committee tomorrow on this. Generally, we can genuinely say, like, we really don't know where he is. He's the only one we don't know, and it's down to him. So that's part one. Part two will be, if it does pass committee, it has to go through a reconciliation process. So it's probably not going to totally pass this week, even if it does come out of committee. But whatever your persuasion, light a candle, hold your crystal, burn some sage, say your rosary, that this dies in committee tomorrow. If this should come out of the State House and pass, we will have really important work to do, which is to defeat this bill at the ballot, likely in an August special election. So I don't have a lot more for you, except to say that we will be all in on this work. HJR1 will fundamentally change how citizen-led ballot initiatives in this state work. And so if you believe in reproductive freedom, if you believe in the right to join a union, if you believe in redistricting reform, if you believe in fair access to the franchise, then you're a no on this bill, just like we think most of Ohioans are. So more to come on this. There is a bunch of our friends in the progressive movement who are forming an initial campaign committee that is already met and is soliciting significant millions of dollars in commitments to help run a no campaign on this. So that stuff is all moving along. And if and when we have to take up this fight as activists and progressives, we will be in this fight shoulder to shoulder with a lot of partners around the state. So more to come on that. And I think that might be all my slides, and we can take this down and I can answer questions. That was a lot. Sorry, I was trying to talk fast.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to start real quick. I was watching the General Government Committee meeting today where they were discussing SJR2.
Yeah.
And I believe, if I understood it correctly, I don't think they had a vote to pass it out of the committee, but they did amend it so that it's more in line with HJR1 now, up to 88 counties.
Yeah,
And
there's one big difference, which is SJR2 has an appropriation for the special election and HJR1 does not.
okay.
And that's an important legal question for us because it could change how we attack, like go on the offensive on the bill. But
okay, they did. I believe they did pass SB Senate Bill 92, and I think that's the one where calling for the special election.
Yeah.
In August. And if I understand, they took a vote on it at the end. But anyhow, I was impressed. The testimony against SJR2 is like 20-1.
Yep.
Against it. And
Yeah.
some very impressive testimony. I'm going to put a link to the video in the chat later on. But what you said you're not certain about what may happen with the committee tomorrow. If they do end up passing SJR or HJR1, et cetera, what do you think the chances will be in getting the abortion amendment passed, reproductive rights amendment passed?
Well, there's two things, right? Which is them passing it out of the legislature means we all have to vote on it on the ballot. So it's not a given. Like the first question is, how do we defeat HJR1 at the special election ballot? And that is a existential threat that is, yes, important for abortion rights, but it is important for every other right in this state too. So the question first is, how do we beat HJR1? And if we don't beat HJR1, like we have a whole nother set of conversations to have. So it's really, we kind of really can't entertain that option. Now, do I think abortion can pass with 60% of the vote? Maybe. I don't think that can happen in 2023 if we're also taking up a fight against this ballot initiative this year too. And so I think part of what will have to happen, that's my opinion. I want to be really clear. Ultimately, I don't get to make the decision about when our abortion rights activists file the petition with the state. I would highly encourage them, if HJR1 does stand the test at the ballot and becomes law, that they rethink and try to go to the ballot in 24 for two reasons. One, we will have had the case heard about voter ID, which is supposed to happen this November, December. And I think it's one thing to try to fight these things in a normal environment, but doing that in a space where we haven't done a lot of voter education on voter ID and what people need to do to get their ID straight in order to vote, like that's a big, expensive thing that no one's really thought through yet. Can they do it? Sure. Is it harder to do on a short timeline? Yes. The other reality of this is that in 24, with the presidential, with the Sherrod's race, there will just be more turnout in 24, right? And while we will be there to help in 23, where the party and all the partners, like all of us on the candidate side, we're just not going to be that big yet in 23. We'll be much, much bigger in 24 and able to do a lot more, like carrying a lot more water for them. So, but ultimately that's going to be their decision. So I don't know. I don't have a great answer. Like I have lots of thoughts. I don't know if I have an answer for you, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go to other questions. Greg.
Hi, Liz. Thank you very much for coming to speak to us tonight. It was great information. So thank you. I'm going to change the subject just a little bit. So when we passed issue 1 way back, I think in 2017 or 2018, maybe, about to end gerrymandering,
Yeah,
we thought that was going to be the end all be all and everything was going to be nice and fair. But we see how the Republicans are kind of ignoring 70% of the people that voted for the issue. So is there anything that the Democrats are going to do to, do we have to go back to square one and do it all over again? Or what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, we need to do more reforms. There, under the current structure, and particularly with the current makeup of the court, there is no current path for us without further reform. The good news is that retired Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor, true to her word, is taking up this fight. And at some point in the next 2 months, she's going to announce an exploratory committee that is going to do research and polling and kind of see if there's a viable path for further reform for the 24 ballot. Early reports of that language looks like it's going to move us more towards the Michigan model, which is an independent commission with no politicians making the decision. So TBD, but I do think we need more reform in order to actually get this right. And hopefully it'll be a part of the 24 ballot landscape for us. Now, I will flag here, and I think this is an important thing to note for all of our ballot work, which is we are going to be important warriors in that fight. But for messaging purposes, right, what you're never going to see is me paying for TV commercials and stuff like that, because whether it's abortion or redistricting, we don't want to start off the campaign by alienating 30% of the electorate who could vote with us because they perceive this issue as hyper-partisan. So we're always going to defer to the ballot campaign to do all the messaging and communicating. And we are going to hustle like hell on the ground to turn out all the Democrats on this issue. That's kind of our lane here. But rest assured, we are having lots of discussions behind the scenes.
Good. All right, Sanford.
And thank you. Liz, first, thank you very much for your comments, and it felt great to learn about the 100,000 signature commitments and the progress so far. I'll follow that, but I'd like to hear your comments about even the possibility of getting those signatures in the future if HJR1 passes, not just in 44 counties, it sounds like an impossible task, but in 88 counties. I'd just be anxious to hear your thoughts about, are we ever going to, if that bill passes, if that law passes, are we ever going to see another citizen-led constitutional amendment as a ballot issue with that requirement?
Yeah. So I think the answer to that is yes. And like, listen, I think while it seems like a lot on paper, I've been a part, like I've actually worked on a couple of statewide ballot initiatives in the past, including SB 5. And on the Senate Bill 5 campaign, we got every county. We met the threshold in every single county. And like, not everything is Senate Bill 5. And that had a baked in kind of level of signers anyway. We'll be honest about that. But I think those things are very possible. And I think for us, as Democrats, as part of the party apparatus, we are really only as there's so much strength in across the state. So example, I showed you how Athens County has already beat their goal. Well, what they're going to do from now on is they're going to go call the party chair in Vinton County and say, hey, we know you don't have as many volunteers as us. Can we come help you? And like, that's the kind of, I think, just like leadership and community that as we continue to cultivate good leaders, a positive volunteer experience, the sky is kind of the limit for us, right? Because as much as we feel like we're not making progress because we didn't win a Senate race, there are powerful, strong, talented activists, as you guys know, all over the state who are willing to give of their time and talent to do this work. And so I think the signature collection stuff is totally possible. But I think it's the communications piece to get to a 60% threshold that's the tougher nut to crack. And it's going to be completely issue dependent and very dependent on how people message. And that's just not what you're never going to see is the state party leading on that. One, because frankly, under IRS code, it's really dicey for us in that space because according to the IRS, my primary purpose is to elect Democrats. And so anything I do has to have some vein of supporting Democratic candidates. And so that's just a tougher question. I feel like this is such an interesting group. I could pontificate about this all night, but I appreciate the question. I think that's on all of our minds. I think there's a lot of potential there, but we have to be clear-eyed. We want to stop it. That's the first goal. Let's just stop it.
I don't see another question, so I'll ask one. I don't quite understand the commercial. I believe I really don't understand the commercial, I guess, but they seem to be saying opponents to the reproductive rights bill is if the state doesn't get to control their access to abortion, then you won't either. It's kind of like then the parent.
They're using it like a parental rights lens of saying that we want to let 12-year-olds have abortion without parental consent and oversight, which just isn't true. As a fundamental argument, like there's really nothing in state law at this point and nothing in the bill we proposed. So just remember, it's not illegal for people to lie in political advertisements. And that's pretty much it. And so what they're trying to do is muddy the waters and confuse the issue before we really get a chance to define it for ourselves. And my hope is that our partners in the choice movement have some counter messaging here soon, because that was a $5 million TV buy, essentially funded predominantly by the Catholic Church. So that's just their starting salvo. It's going to get weirder and grosser from there.
Yeah, it's terrible, the ad. And my concern is it might be effective because people will think, gee, I won't be able to talk to my daughter.
Well, and I think, anything in a vacuum is effective when that's the only thing people are hearing, right? So it's part of why I'm hopeful you'll see stuff from the other side soon.
It's terrible.
I want to thank you guys for your time. I wish I could stay with you for longer, but I have a hard stop here at 7:40. Thank you guys for everything you're doing and look forward to coming back. Just keep us posted. Happy to come back here and give you an update on our signature gathering. And one other thing I want to put on your radar, we are going to do our family reunion. Last summer, we decided when we did our big event in person, I really didn't think anybody was going to miss 2 hours of chicken dinners in a ballroom. You know, there's things we missed, but maybe that wasn't one of them. So instead we had a family reunion. We did it at a concert venue in downtown Columbus and we had so much fun. So we are going to do that again this summer. It's going to be July 15th at Kemba Live in downtown Columbus, and we will get you guys all the information. I hope you guys can join us. It's a lot of fun. We're going to have a party. So
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Good job.
Bye.
Thanks for
Good
joining
night.
us. Thank you, Miranda, too. Thanks. All right, I'm going to take a moment to stop the video here.
Thank you, Dan. I'm sorry I got to